I think mostly our guest speakers are already there. So let us start formally. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Distinguished guests, so let's restart formally this seminar with the recitation of Holy Quran. So I will request Dr. Hassan Shakil to recite some verses from Holy Quran. Dr. Hassan Shakil.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair. Distinguished guests, Dean, HSM, UMT, CODs Finance, CODs Economics, faculty members and participants, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm wishes on the behalf of Dr. Hassan Murad, School of Management. I want to convey my heartfelt gratitude to all our guest speakers for acceptance the invitation and presiding over this seminar on Zakat, Sadaqat, base economics, redistribution to the target of SGDs. So let me introduce HSM. Dr. Hassan Murad School of Management is ranked in the top of few business schools of Pakistan. Starting from 1990s, this school has involved in Premier Center for Business Studies with ranking W4 by Higher Education of Pakistan. HSM is deliver business programs that are rigorous, result-oriented, globally focused, and applicated based. The output of HSM is groomed by one of the finest business faculties in the country for their role and the role of the leaders and managers in banking, finance, economics, and many more. So today our topic is Zakat, Sadaqat, base economics, redistribution to target SDGs. If you look at to the Zakat, so Zakat is an obligation on a Muslim, and its management is an obligation on the Islamic economy. Masarif Zakat, that's are already defined in the Shari'ah, and their applicants and implications widely discussed in the literature. So Zakat work as a localized and target interpretations approach. It comes to the taxation system, which is centralized and a generalized intervention approach. So during to the COVID-19 pandemic, the taxation system collapsed and the government's ministry were not able to feed individuals. So in this case, Zakat and Sadaqat lead intervention and showed its effectiveness. So today in this seminar, we will show that how Zakat and Sadaqat will help the economic system in all over the world, not only for the Muslim, but for the non-Muslim as well. For this, I again very thankful to our distinguished guests, especially Dr. Akram Laldeen Saab, the Executive Director of ISRA, Dr. Ishaq Bhatti Saab, Professor of Finance from Australia, my respected teacher, my guru, Dr. Naseem Shah Shirazi Saab, Professor from Qatar University, Mr. Kanit Khalilullah is the President of PTCL and UFUN. So Hopefully, inshallah, we will have a fruitful discussion today in this seminars. And once we will have the views that how we can contribute throughout the zakat and zakat and how will we establish a good economy in our country. So for that, without any delaying my time, so I'll request Professor Dr. Akram Laldi to share his views. Please, sir.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن والصعب إن شئت سهلا أيها الإخوة الكرام أحييكم بتحية الإسلام Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a very good evening to everyone. My respected colleague, Dr. Nasim, Dr. Ishaq Bati, and others, and Dr. Talat, thank you very much. First, for inviting me to this important forum. And I think it is very much timely for us to discuss about the role of zakah, especially during the pandemic. And we have seen, how people are living in a very difficult situation during this pandemic time. And I think this is the time when we have to empower, the different tools that we have. And in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, خُذْ مِنْ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةٌ تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. It is clear that one of the important institution that we have in Islam is the institution of zakah, and it is considered as one of the pillar in Islam. If we have salah, prayers, one of the important pillar in Islam that we have to do it. That is very much, to build our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the spiritual means. And when we talk about zakah, it is the sacrifice, the contribution, the spiritual aspect that we have to contribute in terms of the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have provided for us. And if you look throughout the history of Islam, brothers and sisters, we have seen that how zakah have really played a very significant role in the society, up to the level that if this institution is being empowered, then it will, inshallah, eradicate the issue of poverty in the society. And I think one of the big challenge that we have nowadays is that because we are not really empowering zakah, all these institutions, perhaps we have several institutions in Islam in which we can use in order for us to manage the inequality in the society, the inequality in the distribution, in the economy. If we are really empowering zakah, inshallah, zakah can really be the tool for us to move forward and address, all these issues in the society. And the challenge also that we have nowadays is that when we look into the institution of zakah, it is, not being managed in a manner that it is supposed to be managed. Of course, in the past, if you look during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, during the time of the Sahaba, because of the simplicity of the situation during that time, they have managed to a certain extent. They have managed to empower zakah in a very good manner. But with the different environment, different type of society that we are in nowadays, perhaps we really need to relook at whatever that we are doing. We really need to put strategies in order for us to rejuvenate zakah at this time. And not only zakah, as I mentioned earlier on, if you look, there are several institutions. We have zakah, we have Waqf, we have Sadaqah, You see, I mean, the concept of takaful and whatnot, cooperative. I mean, all these different institutions are the institutions that we can really empower it. We can really, you see, excel, you see, especially among the Muslim Ummah. And the beneficiary of all these institutions is not only Muslim, but it goes beyond the Muslim society. And if we look into, I mean, some of the challenges that we have, perhaps I'm going to share with you some of the data that I've obtained from one of the article that was written by Brother Zuljastri and Kosdan Dawami, okay, from the Kuliah of Economics IIUM, in their article on achieving Islamic social finance goals through Zakah, Waqf, and Sadaqah in selected countries, issues and challenges. I mean, interestingly, if we look into the data, for example, on the comparison of Zakah, Waqf, and also Sadaqah, in terms of, I mean, he compared between these three countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and also Pakistan, okay, where Indonesia, the total population is 258 million. I mean, this data, I believe it is quite recent also, because this article was published in 2019, right? So Indonesia, the population is 258 million, Malaysia 31.3 million, and Pakistan 204.9 million. And the Muslim population, 2 to 4.5 million in Indonesia, 19.3 million in Malaysia, and 197.5 million in Pakistan. Now, if you look, what I want to focus on the Zakah collection, okay, in US dollar, I mean, for Indonesia, the collection is 231.6 million, despite the number of population is higher, much higher compared to Malaysia. In Malaysia, we managed to collect 547 million, okay, and in Pakistan 105 million. I mean, through this data, I think what we can learn is that we need to have a good system in order for us to collect zakah, because unfortunately, I mean, we can say that nowadays, even though we mentioned that zakah is one of the pillar of Islam, but not everyone, okay, have that kind of awareness about how to, I mean, the kind of awareness to say that that it is their religious obligation to pay zakah. I mean, some, you see, take it very seriously and make it as, you see, and they do not differentiate between the obligation of salah and also zakah. Even though, interestingly, in the Quran, if you look into the Quran, Allah always mentioned about salah and zakah together. Aqimus salata wa atu zakah. Aqimus salah atu zakah. Okay, salah and zakah is always mentioned in many places. Not always, it's in many places. Salah and zakah is mentioned together. So, I mean, interestingly. So meaning that, you see, one of the challenges that we have is that to create awareness among the society about you know, that zakah, the obligation of zakah is similar to the obligation of prayer. If you pray, you don't pay zakah, meaning that you're also committing a sin. And we need to bring across this message to the society and to tell them, please don't differentiate between the obligation of salah and also the obligation of zakah. It is the same. I mean, that is one. The other one, when we talk about collection, is that we can see that people are used to pay zakatul fitr, for example, because in Ramadan, before Eid, we pay zakatul fitr. And sometimes there are many people, okay, they just pay zakatul fitr. They have businesses, they have other activities, you see, that they are doing. They are not paying zakah for other income that they obtain. I mean, this is also another issue that we need to address. We need to tell people that zakah is not only zakatul fitr. Perhaps I think the context that I'm explaining here is very much in Malaysia. because even I can remember during my student days, I mean primary school, secondary school, when it comes to zakah, the only thing that I know is that okay, during Ramadan we have to pay zakah. Okay, that's the only thing that I know. I was not aware until I did my study that okay, I mean there is the different type of zakah obligation that have to be paid. So we need to create awareness. We need to create to tell people the importance of paying zakah. Then only, of course, we can pay zakah. Now, coming back to collection, right? Uh, in Malaysia, perhaps I mean the example that I can give our experience in Malaysia is that if we look into the system, okay, of collection of zakah in the past, it was very weak, I would say, because the one of the issue that we have in Malaysia is that the administration of religion is decentralized. We have 14 states in Malaysia. So when it comes to zakah, zakah is managed by the religious authority of the state, right? So technically we have 14 bodies that is managing the collection and distribution of zakah in Malaysia. So each and every state have their own system, have their own way. You see, some are more efficient compared to the others. But I think one of and it is under the religious affairs department within the state, right? And I think one of the innovation that have been done by, I would say, almost all states is that they have created a separate entity. If in the past, everything, you see the religious matters, administration, zakah, waqf, all is in one office. They have decentralized, you see, zakah especially, to have its own entity. That's why most of the state, they have created what they call as, they term it as a zakah center. Okay, zakah center. So, I mean, the name is different from one state to another state. And they have professional people who are managing this center. Of course, I mean, it is supervised by the religious authority of the state. But, I mean, they have a separate outfit in which this outfit, the purpose of it, the target, the task of it is only to manage the collection of zakah and also distribution of zakah and whatnot. Now, since then, I would say that the collection of zakah have not to say double, triple, more than that. You see, so they managed to because they have a dedicated, I would say, body that is only focusing. So these people, I mean, they will go out there. I mean, they will create awareness among the people. They will, collect zakah, and they have a system. You see, they have their website, they have their apps and whatnot. And paying zakah is something which is very, very, I mean, they make it very easy. If in the past, I mean, you have to go to the religious office, you see, meet the people there, have to pay in cash, and then you have to sit in front of the person who is collecting zakah and say that, okay, I'm paying this zakah, blah blah. I mean, all that has been made simple, you see, by the technology that we are having now. So I think this is the kind of innovation that we really need in order for us to increase the collection of zakah. Because if you don't manage to collect zakah, then you see you don't have anything, you see, in order for us for you to give away. Okay, and when it comes to the role of the financial institution, I mean, here comes the role of the financial institution. If I am not mistaken, all zakah body in Malaysia now, you can, I mean, the financial institution, the Islamic banks particularly, are facilitating you see, to make it easy for the people to pay zakah. Of course, it is not very difficult to do that. You see, and on the same note, if you can see that it goes beyond that, where in some bank, you open the online banking. I mean, there is a special clicks that you can click to pay your zakah there. So I mean, this is the kind of, you see, move that we really need to do it in order for the bank to use their infrastructure in order to facilitate the collection of zakah. And since in Malaysia, of course, I think the tedious thing is that because it is under the religious authority, so sometimes there are certain steps and whatnot, you see. So why not, I mean, banks, financial institutions also are being used in order to empower the collection of zakah. Now, I mean, that is perhaps, I mean, some of the experience that we have in Malaysia. I'm mindful of the time. And the other challenge that we have is that in terms of distribution. This is also another challenge that we have, where you need to ensure that the zakah money goes to the right people, right, target. And again, as all of us know, that there are, what is mentioned in the Quran, that there are 8 asnaf, 8 group of people who are eligible to receive zakah. And during this pandemic time, of course, you see, we need to look into the priority. I think this is very important. Yes, okay. Sometimes we are very rigid, okay, in providing the zakah money to the people to the extent that we make it very difficult. That's why sometimes some people are complaining, oh, if I want to get, maybe about 20, 30 US dollars of zakah money, I have to fill 10 forms, have to get the signature from there, here and whatnot, you see. I think this is also another malaise that we have in our society sometimes. We don't trust people. I think it is very important for us to trust people. You see, when people say that, well, I'm in need. Okay, I mean, you need to do some due diligence, understand that. Okay, I'm not saying that we don't do any due diligence. We need to do due diligence, but be reasonable. We have to be reasonable, okay, in assisting other people. So we need to have a mechanism. And nowadays, of course, I mean, with the technology that we have, we can always empower the technology in getting things done perhaps more easily, you see. And that also perhaps, I mean, if we can use some of the if it is possible, sometimes it might not be possible, you see, the infrastructure that is available in the financial institution, even though I can understand that there are a lot of restrictions, you see, then why not, by all means, I mean, we can always do that. And also when it comes to empowering, you see, the SME and whatnot, again, I mean, zakah can always be used to empower this group of people, you see. That's why there is a saying that it is better to give the the tools, you see, for one to fish rather than giving fish, right? So meaning that you try to teach people, okay, that okay, I'm giving you this tool and you can use it in order for you to be sustained. So down the line, you don't have to rely on the zakah money and whatnot. So I mean, these are among the areas that I believe that we need to explore. And the last word that I would like to share here is that you see, financial institutions, they in Malaysia, at least in Malaysia, perhaps in some other part of the world also, they do pay zakah themselves. All right. I mean, this is another perhaps, I mean, the scholars as well as the financial institutions, I mean, they need to play their role, okay, and need to ensure that how this zakah money can reach its target in order to empower the society at large. And I think, inshallah, I mean, with all these different initiative that we are taking, inshallah, I mean, it will make it easy. And we need to have a proper governance. You see, this is also another thing that I always stress. When people pay zakat to you, it does not mean that they are just discharging their religious duty, but they want to know where the money goes. They want to know that the money is being managed in a proper manner. The money is not being wasted, and the money is not also being used for excessive administrative charges and whatnot. They want to know all that. And we really need a strong governance structure in order for us to manage the zakah money. And that is the reason why we need to have a proper audit for the zakat account. Even though it is not a Shari'ah requirement, I would say, but perhaps, I mean, if you ask me, I would say that it is mandatory, you see, for all zakah account to be audited, okay, and we need to be transparent and tell the people, okay, see, this is how the money is being used. We do not want to have the situation where if it is related to Islam, it is not subject to a proper governance and whatnot. No, I mean, that is wrong. You see, so we need to ensure that we do all the proper, have a proper governance, and that will entail, of course, you know, some costs, yes, but at the end of the day, we are satisfied that we are discharging our duty, you see, to satisfy the requirement of Shari'ah, and at the same time, okay, for the good of the people. Okay, I think I will stop there for the time being. And if there is any question, there is anything, I would be happy to address it. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Jazakallah khair, Prof. Akram Lalbin. And obviously, it was a good discussion that all the points that you have discussed, especially the zakat and its distributions, and especially in that pandemic that we are, lastly you discussed that we have to find out the peoples, because we can find the peoples who are throughout our system, but still they are the people that their data is not available in our system. So for that, I think that in Pakistan, what our Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Imran Khan has done, he has started the Ehsas program. So throughout that Ehsas program, he has find out those peoples, and he make the different, you know, committees in the different towns, and the job of that committees is to find out that people that who would really need the zakat and the sadaqat. And we knew that the people, they went their house and they give them the sadaqat and zakat as well. And especially the last point that you have discussed, that we need to have a proper governance system, because everyone, they want to at least see that where their money goes. I mean, their zakat and the sadaqat. Because previously what happened that we have seen, especially in different countries, that the people, they pay the zakat, but it does not go to the right peoples. And I appreciate very well the zakat system in Malaysia, because I have been there in Malaysia, and then I have seen that especially they help the students over there, and in that time, and I think that still they are helping not only the local students but the international students as well. And I'm the one of the witness, because they helped me a lot during my PhDs as well. So Jazakallah khair. Yes, my dear audience, if there's any question, so you may ask Prof. Lalbin. Ji. If there's any questions, so please raise your hand, and then we'll allow you for the question. If not, so we'll be see at the end of the session. If there's any questions, so we'll be requested you again in the session. So Jazakallah khair, Barakallah feek, sir. So now we invite our second guest speakers, Dr. Ishaq Bhatti. Dr. Ishaq Bhatti is the Director of Islamic Banking and Finance, and he's the Professor of Finance in Lothrop Business Schools, Australia. And it is our honor that he accepted our invitation for this seminar in a very short notice. So without any delay, I will request our honorable, respected Professor Dr. Ishaq Bhatti sir. Please, sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank you and all the audience who are present in this. Can you hear me? My voice is clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Your voice is
we
very
can
much
hear
clear.
you. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So my today's talk is dedicated to Dr. Hassan Murad, whose contribution and even his father's contribution, Khurram Jah Murad, who been a wonderful author and contributors and educationist. From whom I personally benefit with the literature Khurram Jah Murad prepared on Islam and Islamic movement. And this dedication is going to Khurram Jah Murad and Dr. Hassan Murad. May Allah bless them in Jannah. Creation of wonderful even they have done in their lifetime. So secondly, I would like to start my today's lesson. So I just came out of my lessons, if I don't mind. So I was doing some student consulting on Islamic financial econometrics. So I got it. So today's topic is Islamic finance in Australia, lessons for Pakistan, and particularly I will take care of Zakat and Qard-e Hasana product, which we started. Now, I will go through things. Number one is I will start history of Australian Muslim. Before I go to the history of Australian Muslim, I will talk the history of Australians. As you know, the Australians are the European Central
Excuse me, sir. Sir, your voice is not clear. Prof. Bhatti?
Yeah. Is it clear?
Sir, आपकी आवाज जो है कट कट के आ रही है. You are requested to look your internet, please.
Let me.
Dr. Ishaq, perhaps you can off your video and you can speak without video. That might be better.
Okay, that will be good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Is it clear? Is it clear?
I think yes. I think that
Yes,
will
sir.
be better. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It's better? Okay. So as you know, the Europeans came to Australia as a criminals, and whosoever steal a piece of bread or they did some criminal action in Europe, they were brought back to Australia and they were settled down here. And so this is a brief history of Australian migrants. You can see from these photos, they were brought as a slave labor. Also in 1857, and the Indo subcontinent, Muslims you can see who came here, and because they were freedom fighter in Indian subcontinent. So what the British did, they took them into the ships and they bring them here in Australia as a slave labor. So these, some of them were Muslims, Hindu, Sikh, and some of them were Muslim. This was the first step the Muslim came into Australia as a slave labor. And then they settled down in a various part of Australia. Australia is a huge continent where thousands of languages were spoken by the Aborigines when they came here. So the original settler who came here, they won't understand their language, but they have an automaton in hand which them control them. So what happened? They tried to capture most of these places, where they can control the local communities. Among the local communities, some of them were Muslims as well. They were Muslim because they lived next to Indonesia, and Indonesia on 1600 Muslim from Indonesia and Germany Muslim used to travel to this part of the world for trading purposes. And you can see some of the Muslims' lands here. You can see the Muslims came, they are wearing, some of them were Arabs, the other was Afghan, and some were Punjabis. And these are the Afghan camel riders who came to Australia. And when they came to Australia, they integrated with the local Aborigines communities. And these local Aborigines communities become a Muslim as well. So the history of Muslims go back to 1600. Muslims living in Australia were practicing their faith and their religion. So they used to pray in this sort of mosque. You can see here, whenever they are traveling, so if there are 2 or 3 people, one person can lead to the Jamaat and act as the Imam, the other pray behind them. This is the first mosque they set up. Afghan Pakhtuns living in Pakistan, Afghanistan, migrants started praying, and then they pay zakat. Whatever salary they get, some of the money they get sent back to overseas to their parents, the other they pay zakat to local Aborigines people. The local Aborigines people were impressed. What sort of people are they? They are looking after us. They are not killing us. They're not cruels. So the Islam started spreading from there. So then the modern colonialization stopped in 1947, and new immigrants people start coming into Australia, and the structure of the Muslims in Australia is like this now. So the Muslim migrant in Australia, Australian country of birth, you can see now there are approximately 2 million Muslims live there. Now this ISRA is not of our professor. This ISRA is a Melbourne ISRA, which is, I was trying to tell them, don't put your name as ISRA, but they changed the spelling, I think, somehow or the other. So this is the statistical data set of Australian Bureau of Statistics in 2001. And Professor Laldeen, they have to talk to them why they put their name as ISRA, okay, in Melbourne. It's a part of the university. They are offering degrees as well. And now the Muslims are into multicultural situation. They came from all part of the world. European Muslim like are there, Turkish, Albanian, Sukhwal, and European Muslim, Asian, all over the world the Muslims come here. Why Muslim comes here? Because if there are cruelty in their home country, there are poverty, and there is a limitation and non-freedom of expression of religious practices. So they migrated to Australia. When they migrate to Australia, they have a freedom of expression. So Muslim, you can see in a different color, African, Malaysian and Singaporean Malay, and you can see Indian, Pakistani, European Muslims, and they all pray together. And this is one of the Friday prayer mosques you can see where they come. Why they come here? Because Australia is so rich in minerals and mining and freedom of expression. This is the only Western democratic country located in Asia, and that is based on religious freedom and equality and human rights and voting rights here. So that's why they came here. They tried to do some businesses, and most of them got attracted due to Islam, due to Australian industrial mining and mines, which have made them economically better. So they may be called as an economic migrant, and these economic migrants get richer and become well established, and hence they started looking how we can set up an institution of Islamic financial locally, because the government don't understand how Muslim financial inclusion of the Muslims can be done, because the Muslims don't put their money into the banks, because the money keeping into the bank is to attraction of interest, which they believe is haram, and also they don't want to pay zakat to the local community who are non-Muslims and they don't fulfill the zakat requirements, zakat needs. So they start looking into Iran, and finally we start negotiating with the Australian government and various places. So we set up Islamic banking and finance course at La Trobe University, and where we started talking to different faith of the religion people and ambassadors and negotiated, and we demonstrated here we are in Australia, we can do investment in various areas, and we started explaining to the local community. But the life was not so easy. There was a lot of problem communicating with the discourse. So conventional donations were very easy to be done. It's straightforward, you can do, and you're going to get a tax deduction. But for the Muslim, if they're going to send the money overseas, things were very difficult because we end up supporting some sort of terrorist activities, and some of our people got into the prison. To overcome on this difficulty, we spoke to the government, and government passed a legislation couple of years ago, 2019, what they did, they passed Islamic finance legislature the 1st July 2019. Board of Taxation in October 2010 started investigating what Muslims are doing. This was after 9/11, the things motivated that Muslims need to be included into their financial inclusion. Otherwise, they may end up sending their money to others. So the government gave us a permission to start some sort of Islamic financial product which was not subject to taxation, and there were only two items which were not subject to taxation. The first one was zakat, the other was one Qarde Hasana. But now, because they already passed legislation to 1 year and a half ago, so we are also practicing Islamic finance home loan, Islamic finance business loan. Major banks are tapping up into the Islamic finance. National Australia Banks is launched a mega Islamic finance loan on a business to the Muslims. And so we set up National Zakat Foundation in Australia. So our generational change programs for the long-term growth and well-being of our Australian Muslim community, now zakat is a tax deductible in Australia, which is one of the major breakthrough in Muslims who are living in this area. So this is a wonderful things to be noticed, that see, this is now zakat is treated as a tax deductible in Australia. So other Muslim countries should also follow, like Pakistan, Afghanistan, because here the people pay zakat, and if you pay zakat to National Zakat Foundation, say for example, or a mosque or financial institutions, you pay some sort of khairat or sadaqat, and you get a receipt. That amount of payment is tax deductible. You can claim in your annual tax, which is a wonderful thing to do. So that have attracted a lot of community leaders to pay zakat to the local communities. And also we had a human appeal group where we pay zakat. This is the registered group to whom we pay the zakat, and they work in overseas. Like for example, my son was asking me today where to pay. I told him he wanted to pay some money to Afghanistan refugees. So we contacted the Australian Human Rights, and that is human appeal for a Muslim communities who can pay zakat. When he will pay the zakat to Afghan through human appeal, his payment of zakat is tax deductible. So what's happening? Still, it's not necessary that we only pay zakat to the local overseas people. We still do pay zakat to the local as well. Some of the homeless people, new migrants who came here in Australia, and they are unable to pay their funds. So we pay, up till now, we have paid approximately $10 million zakat to the local people. The zakat can be paid to the domestic violence. We had a Imam of Australia who Shari'ah compliance these zakat payments, and we pay financial hardship, the people who cannot pay their bills, homelessness, the people who are staying out of their home, single parents and widows, orphan, they are living in Australia, they don't have any social security benefits, and the refugees, and also some people who cannot pay their medical bill. For example, some of the students who come here and they run out of insurance and funds, we pay from Zakat their medical payments as well. Islamic Council of Victoria run another product, we call it no interest loan scheme, which we call it Qarz-e Hasana or a benevolence loan. We pay up to $1,200. A number of people, including Muslim and non-Muslim, have contacted the Islamic Council of Victoria for an urgent need for a small loan. Our Qarz-e Hasana product is interconnected since 2011 with National Australia Bank, as well as we are interconnected with the Family, Housing and Good and Shepherd is a Christian group, and where we sign a contract with a Christian group and Family and Housing government group, as well as Islamic group. This is a no interest loan scheme, or Qarz-e Hasana is a product in Australia which brings together all the communities, no matter whether you are Hindu or Sikh or Muslim or non-Muslim or Jew or Christian. If you are suffering from the hardship, come to our masjid. We will give you at least $1,200 loan to $1,500, $1,500 loan, where you can pay no interest at all. No interest, zero interest, no service charges, no application charges. Just you have to pay back us, say $50 per month from your easy installments. So the interesting thing is, this project is like Al Khidmat group, as well as, our friends which are running interest-free loan in Pakistan. But here we do everything online. All the application forms have to be filled up online. The bills has to be submitted online. Quotation of the requirement of buying a fridge or repair of your car or payment of the fees has to be done online. So we get, after clarification and satisfaction that this applicant need a Qarz-e Hasana. If he's a Muslim and he's suffering from financial problem, we say, hey, you are eligible for a zakat. Why not you put a zakat to our National Zakat Foundation? So if he fulfills zakat conditions, so we recommend them to zakat. Some people get defaulted from these no interest loan. Our structure is as follows. We have a Shari'ah advisor. This is our major bank who provide a capital grant to Muslims. This is a government body, Family and Housing and Social Security Benefit Department, which give us operational grant to the Muslim. And this comes all the money come into the Islamic Council of Victoria's. We had a fund manager, we have admin and content support, office space and computing facilities where all these money come into the account. And then what we do, we start paying those money. So this money, dollars is flowing into this account, the dollar is flowing into this account. Then we had a Shari'ah advisor, chair of the Imam board, who is controlling whether this money, whatever the money is coming, and we are paying all these monies, these dollars. Now what happened? This is a Christian group who give us some extra facilities. So also being a La Trobe University staff member, we provide the staff member a volunteer a free training. So these Christians come here, they put some money, part of the money as well. This is our no interest loan scheme. It is not a zakat. So more multi-faith groups get together. The central link is a government body where they pay to the people monthly payment. Those people who are below poverty line, the central link give them a money. But still, some people are still needed in front. What we do, we pay them a loan, whatever they need. So we pay them a loan, and then we ask the central link, please give us $1.50 each installment. So they give us back their installments back to us back. So in this way, this loan is working very successfully in Australia, being a Muslim minority country. So two products are breakthrough product. Number one is zakat, which we have been treated as tax deductible. So in Pakistan, for example, if you pay zakat, if the government can register somebody that you can pay only zakat to Amjad Saqib's associations or to Minhaj group or to Al Khidmat group or an orphan house, if the government registered those bodies and these bodies can issue a receipts, and those receipts that money can be tax deductible instead of paying. So that will encourage the contributors to pay more and more zakat. This gives them an incentives to pay zakat if the zakat amount is tax deductible. So my dear, let me keep on moving further given the time. I have a limited time. So the total number of zakat so far we have paid is as follows. So we paid up to now the zakat during this month. In the May, we paid this amount of zakat. I don't know where it is in terms of hundreds and thousands of dollars. So $600,000, $800,000 in June, and similarly we paid around say $1,100,000 in July, and then in August we paid loan interest in that. But the average loan investment is average monthly. We can say is approximately $900,000 loan we pay average loan installments. So this is our Melbourne and Sydney, two cities where we are running these loans, and the amount of the loan payments is written here, and in different places hundreds of thousands of dollars, but this is only $1,200 we paid to one individuals. And the Muslim community is responding extremely well to this program. These loans provide great help to single divorced women, refugees, and there are many international students and migrants who are unemployed due to COVID. Their international education is not recognized in Australia, so we pay them these loans. Stories: we got MBA graduate from Jaffna and up in Christian Island here as a migrant. He don't have any money to pay, so we paid their bridging fees as well, visa bridging fees. So some of our activities are here on this link, and I will send. So this is Zakat and Sadaqat in Australia is a multi-faith, multicultural, multilingual community benefiting to us. Communities are raised to give and contribute to Australia, not to take from country, rather to conserve into the country. So like a Pakistani, we don't expect what country is paying us, we expect what we're going to give back to the country. Australian ethics and legal system based on Islamic justice and equities positions are offered with the qualification and contribution, not families connection and political affiliations, rather on the basis of merit. And there are some of the above the Pakistani living here in Australia are practicing. These are the lessons for Pakistani academics to teach to the student to enhance Islamic finance products like Zakat and Sadaqat, so they can do auditing of Zakat, auditing of Sadaqat, and try to teach them as a case studies. I hope this is enough from me. Thank you very much, Dr. Talat Hussain Saab.
Jazakallah khair, Hassan and Jazak. And we are very thankful to our respected Dr. Professor Ishaq Bhatti Saab. And obviously he had done a very fruitful presentation to us, and he has shown that how does the caste system runs in Australia. And in the conclusion, when he gave us the conclusion, and he mentioned about the multicultural, the multilinguals, and the people from all over the world who they are coming and they are paying zakat and their contribution throughout the zakat and zakat as well. So if we look at to the real concept of the Islam, and if we look at to the first era of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he migrated to the Medina, So it was the same because they came from the different culture. They will have the different languages as well, and but there also they help each other. I mean, the Mawahat model was there, and I was very happy to see the model, especially when Prof he have discussed the NZF community program, and then later he discussed the NILS program, and then ICV as a Hassan model, and their contribution as well. So then obviously as a Muslim, we do have these kind of the activities, especially in the Muslim countries. Prof, he is running a very good model in the non-Muslim countries, and that is very much appreciated, mashallah. Yes, if there's any question from the audience, please raise up your hand so we'll allow you for the question. जी ऑडियंस, अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है तो हम आपको अलाउ करते हैं जी. Okay, if not, so at the end, inshallah, we'll ask again. So once again, we are very thankful to our respected professor, Dr. Bhatti Sahab. Jazakallah khair, sir. Barakallah fiqh. And now we go to our next presentation. Our next presenter is our Honorable Professor Dr. Naseem Shah Shirazi Sahab, Professor at the College of Islamic Studies, Hamad bin Khalifa University, Doha, Qatar. Dr. Naseem Shah Shirazi has a background from economics, and he has done a lot of the contribution in Islamic economics and in Zakat contributions as well. So without any delay, I request Professor Dr. Naseem Shah Shirazi Sahab to give us his presentation on Zakat economy. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Talat. Can you share the presentation that I sent to you?
Sir.
It is shared, sir. Please let me know when you want to change the slides.
Okay, so you just, okay. So thank you. So thank you, Dr. Talat Hussain, giving me the opportunity, and the university authorities, my colleagues, and the students, and all the researchers. Assalamu alaikum. The topic is empirical relationship between zakat and development. Please next. But the focus, this is the outline of the presentations. Go next because we will save the time. Okay, so the focus of the presentation is the relation between zakat, income distribution, and poverty. But the title you can see is the relation between zakat and development. So since poverty, income distribution, and the growth are the components of the development, because development is multidimensional. So related to the economic growth, it depends on a number of factors, including the human capital, physical capital, technology, and some other institutions, because without that, you cannot incentivize the investments. Income distribution in a society play a very important role, and there are some weaknesses and some, what do you call it, the other illnesses about the unequal distributions. So I have collected a number of references to show that more equal distribution leads to more growth and more income distribution, better income distribution, and poverty alleviations. Next. Now, you show it, just slideshow, you just click on the slideshow. It's down. Yeah. Okay. So I have collected a number of references, and I have quoted the studies which show a more equal distribution leads to better growth. So for example, you can see the first lines. So that is the inequality leads to more political instability, uncertainty, and less investments, and that's why that leads to lower growth. So high inequality leads to a populist redistributive tax policies, So that leads to more disincentive effects, and that affects ultimately the growth, and the growth slowdowns. And high income inequality disproportionately influences wealthy groups, and that lobby for preferential tax treatment, and that's why there is a overinvestment in some sector, and there is the no investment or very low investment in other sectors, and that results a slower growth or lower growth. Next. The other explanation relates to the relationship between economic effects of higher equality and inequality. Higher equality reduces poverty and leads to more human development in terms of nutrition, better education, and health. And with more productive workforce because of the human development, and therefore more innovations. Next. Next slide, please. And the second is the higher equality in asset distribution leads more even access to credit and information and more opportunity for the poor. So without going all these references, I can conclude on the basis of these references that more equal income distribution is desirable, which is a mechanism for reducing poverty and increasing the human development, enhancing the human development, and as a contributor to the growth. Next. Okay, I'm just presenting a very brief case that's showing this how cash transfers leads to better income distribution and poverty reductions. So the cash transfer programs is becoming more and more popular. And if you see, there is a study, although it's a very old data, now if you update it, and you can see it's more than 1 billion people in developing countries that cash transfer program is, they are receiving the cash transfer programs. Next. Okay, now this is a study. This study was made, the countries include the Latin Americans, and that is, you can see in this graph, the cash transfer, how much the extreme poor people are covered by cash transfer. So in this case, you can see that in case of Argentina, almost 92% of the extreme poor, they are transferred cash, they are getting the cash transfers, and in Uruguay about 96%, Brazil 69%, and so on. Peru about 57%. Now this is these are the number of extreme poor who are covered by the cash transfers program. Now in this graph you can see the impact on the income distributions measured in terms of Gini coefficients. And you can see that's in case of Argentina, about 7% of the income distribution, income inequality reduced. And in case of Brazil, it's 3.6%, Uruguay about 2.4%, and Bolivia about 2%, and therefore, let's say Peru about 1%. And in case of headcount reduction, you can see in Argentina, it's about 68%, and the Brazil about 22%, and so on. Now, one lesson that we can get from these studies is that it depends. For example, the country where they transfer, they cover a large number of poor people. So there, the impact of this transfer is much higher compared to those countries where the cash transfers covers the low number or the low ratio or the less number of the people. So therefore, you can see the effect on income distribution and effect on the poverty. Next. And this is again the social assistance overall and the impact on the poverty reduction and the headcount reductions. Now look at this the data. is for OIC countries and the non-OIC countries. So these are the poor countries, developing countries basically. So the coverage is 33%, and in case of non-OIC, it's 36%. Average per capita transfer is 0.40, and in case of non-OIC is 0.79. Gini index reduction, that is the improvement in income distribution, is 2.23 in case of OIC, and in case of non-OIC is 2.26%. Poverty reduction here is 6%, here is 8%, and the poverty gap reduction is almost 11-12%, and here is 16% or 15.5%. But the important thing is benefit cost ratios. How much the poor actually gets if you transfer $1 to the poor persons. Now, in this case, you see in OIC countries, on average, they get 0.24 cent out of $1 when you transfer $1. And in case of other poor non-OIC countries, that's almost the same, 0.26. So in other words, whatever you transfer to the poor people, the amount you intend to transfer is not reached to the poor people because of the governance problems. So in other words, another lesson that we take from this is that the benefit cost ratio is very much important. So the first lesson is how many poor people are covered through this cash transfers program. The second is the cash transfer must be enough to cover the poverty gap. And the third lesson that we get is the transfer efficiency should be there, and there should be governance problem. Governance, yeah. So the next. There are some studies, there are many studies on the relationship between zakat and growth, poverty reduction, and income distributions. But before we go to the poverty and income distribution, let's see the relationship between zakat and growth. So there is a number of studies available on that, but you see the results of all this is mixed. Why the result is mixed? Because they use a different data setup, they use a different methodology, and therefore they are getting the different results. Next. Now look at this. I'm just presenting the results of this study. And this study is, the case study is Indonesia. And they used the structural equation modeling. And they wanted to prove the hypothesis they having that zakat leads to economic growth, and economic growth leads to human development index, and economic growth leads to percentage of poor people reduction basically, and therefore that's the economic growth leads to Gini index, that is the reduction in inequality, that is measured in terms of Gini coefficient. Now, if you see the results, you can find a negative coefficient and which is highly significant. It means that is rejected. Zakat has no effect on economic growth. And therefore, economic growth has no effect on the human development. It's a negative. Economic growth is a positive and a significant. It means, right, it doesn't lead to reduce the poverty. And therefore, the same is the case. It doesn't lead to reduce the income inequality. Now, if you see the explanation of this study, the researchers there of the view, basically, they use the actual zakat collection, and that is collected by the Baznas, that is their zakat body, and the amount of the amount that was transferred or distributed, that was so small compared to the number of the poor people. So the amount is thinly spread over a large number of the people. Therefore, you can't see any impact. Next. Okay, there is another study, this study, that is by Iqbal, and basically he simulated for 8 years, and he took the household income and expenditure data from Pakistan, and he classified the whole population into 3 groups. That is the poor group, then the middle income group, and the rich group, right? And then he simulated without zakat transfers from rich to the poor. And you see, this is the average growth. So the average growth without zakat is, let's say, 4.76%, 8.42%, and this is a simulation result from for 8 years. So you look at that, ultimately you can see that's 8.36%. Now, if zakat is transferred at the rate of 2.5% from the rich to the poor, how much overall growth will take place, or how much it contribute to the growth? Now look at that. After this, transferring the 2.5% from the rich to the poor class, so you can see the growth. So the growth after the zakat transfer is 5.42%, 9.04%. You compare this and this one, this is at least a less than 1% increase, and here is about again the same is the increase. So you can see that there is an increase in the economic growth with the transfer of zakat from the rich to the poor people. Now it shows, a previous study showed a negative relation and no effect, basically no effect on the growth from the zakat transfers, because that use the actual zakat collections. And each Muslim country, you see, as Dr. Akram Al-Din presented previously, that the income, that is the zakat collected from by the government is a small amount compared to the potential that can be collected. So that you can see, but Mazhar Iqbal is using the assuming that 2.5% of the GDP is transferred to the poor people, then you can see these results can be realized. Okay, next. Okay, just like Mazhar Iqbal, so I'm also doing one exercise related to that is zakat potential and their impact on poverty and income distributions. Next. Next slide, please. Okay, so what I did, so I took the basic study that was made by Manzar Kaf, and he estimated the potential of zakat from 8 countries using the income accounts. So he used the very old, that is the zakatable items that were prevalent at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Then he took that the return from the fixed assets may be zakatable, and then the fixed assets may be included in the zakatable items under 3 scenarios, 3 different fiqh school of thoughts. So he estimated the zakat potential for all these 8 countries. So what I did, I took the average of all these 8 countries. So Z1 1.8 and Z2 3.8 and Z3 4.3. Next. So I made certain adjustment to what Dr. Manzar Kaf he estimated. So what I did, I extended by using the averages for the other 40 OIC countries, but I made a certain adjustments that the poor people they cannot pay zakat, so therefore the poor people under $2 are excluded from the payment of zakat using the per capita income concepts. And then only the Muslim population, they are taken into account because they pay zakat, non-Muslim, they don't pay zakat. So therefore, non-Muslim populations are excluded using the per capita income concepts. And then what I did, that I took the median of Z1, Z2, Z3, and the average of the median of Z1, Z2, and Z3, that was 2.93%, and I used 2.93% for 109 country. That is assuming that if all the poor countries, the low income and the low middle income country, I took that 109 countries, and whether that if they also impose, let's say, the poverty tax equal to zakat, so what will be the impact on income distribution and the poverty? Next. Next slide, please. Okay, now look at that. If this is the case, so you will see that's how much zakat is a percentage of the resource gap made under $1.25, made under $2, and then the headcount reduction made under $1.25. Now, with the transfer of this much amount, right, 2.93, so how many countries they will be able to bridge the poverty gap with this amount? So the countries where the impacts will be equal to or greater than 25%, 25% to 75%, 75% to 100%, and over 100%. So you can see all of from the sample countries, 14 countries can have a 25% impact that they can cover their poverty gap through these transfers, and in other 21 countries between 25 to 75%, 3 countries 75 to 100%, and other 63 countries more than 100%. Under $2 poverty gap, so equal to 25 and equal to or more than 25% is 25 countries, 25 to 75%, 13 countries, 75 to 100%, 4 countries, and 62% over 100%. Now, assuming a linear relationship that if we transfer a certain amount to bridge the poverty gap, it means the poverty reduction headcount may be reduced by the same amount. So therefore, we can, assuming this linear concept, so linear relationship, so there we can assume that the poverty headcount under $1.25 will exactly be reduced by this ratio. Under $2 will be reduced by this ratio. Next. Now we assume that there is a zakat may be collected and submitted to a one center. That the countries which collect the surplus, so they can deposit in some certain central account, let's say in any one of the country, and then from that account fund, it will be transferred to the countries which are fund deficits. So what will be the impact? So for all these countries, the poverty gap under $1.2 is 0.86, and in terms of absolute income, that is $345 billion. Under $2, it's about 553 billion, and zakat potential under the median 2.93 is US dollar 1.2 trillion. So it means if we do rights, the international fund is established, and from there it is transferred to the fund deficit countries. So we can see that 1.2 trillion is many times higher than the required amount under $1.2, and this under $2.3. So this is a very big amount. Next. Okay, now if we are assuming this amount is transferred to the bottom 40% of the population, we are assuming that the bottom 40% are poor, then you can see that is the impact on their income improvement is between 10 to 20%, 20 to 30%, 30 to 40%, and more than 40%. And median effects, that is in percentage. So you can see the 76 countries, the bottom 40% population income will increase between 40 to 20. In case of 26 countries, 20 to 30%, and 7 countries, 30 to 40%, 2 countries between more than 40%. Median impact will be 18%. Next. Now, if we assume we transfer this amount to the bottom 20% of the populations, you can see that 61 countries, so the population, the poor people, the bottom 20% of the population income will increase between 25 to 50%. And in case of 33 countries, 50 to 75%, 9 countries, 75 to 100%, and more than 100%, that their income will improve much more, that's 7%, and the median impact will be 46%. Next. Okay, so we can conclude that there is a positive relationship between the zakat and economic growth. poverty reduction and the improvement in the income distributions. And if you see the Dr. Mazhar Iqbal study, he used the 2.5, that if it is transferred to the poor people, so there will be impact on the growth. And we also saw the study made by Nura Lusting, and that was he took the Latin American countries, and that was the, so he showed that if the coverage of the population is high, and if the transfer is equal to poverty gap, and if there is a transfer efficiency, so you can see the huge impact, significant impact on the poverty reduction and the improvement in the income. And so what I did, so I also showed in these slides that it results a lot of income improvement and the poverty reduction if we can manage and transfer the amount and having the goalness in its right. So that will be a big, that will be a significant impact on that. So keeping in with the times span, so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you, Dr. Talat and the university for giving this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very Iman promoting presentation. Like you were saying that the model of cash transfer is also more beneficial when we apply it on zakat, and especially when the optimal zakat value is nearing 2.5%. So and the results that you've shown are very fruitful if we can apply it to macro level, and all countries can come together in making a fund out of it, and then help the poor countries, and especially poor countries and poor regions or poor residents of their nation. So I very much thank you for your good presentation. And I would like from the audience, if anyone want to ask any question from our esteemed guest, and please raise your hand so that I can invite you to ask any question for development of further understanding out of it. Anyone, please raise your hand. Okay, sir, thank you very much. We may get some questions at the end if there are any, but I'm glad to attend your presentation. I would like to call upon our next esteemed guest, Mr. Khalid Khalilullah. If you please do share your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, I will share the first presentation. Can you allow me to share my presentation?
Okay, I've given you the rights, please, you know.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, I can see you. Yeah, please start. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. My topic of the discussion is I have to present zakat economy as an ultimate solution for our economic and social problems. For that, we have to discuss the current economic system so that we can challenge it and present zakat as an alternate system, a divine solution for our problems. Currently, the present economics order is based on new liberalism and rentier capitalism. This system was adopted and resurfaced in 1980 when Margaret Thatcher and Reagan on the one part of the Atlantic, on the other part got elected. And according to them, government intervention is bad. They want lesser government intervention. As per Ronald Reagan, he said that government is part of the problem, not the part of solution. And as a result, they want free market on the basis of global multinational companies. They want lesser taxes and lesser tariffs, so that, during last Trump era, taxation on big companies has been reduced from 28% to 11 to 21%. So significant reduction in tariffs and taxes to basically promote the global companies. As per the classical economics, they want, which has been introduced by Adam Smith, all economies should be self-balancing activity. No one should be interfering in this activity. And therefore, they want lesser government intervention, and they want multinational companies on a globalized basis. Although this has been done on the basis of free market, but instead of protecting competition and protecting free market, they gave preference to property rights. And property rights, on the basis of property rights, physical, financial, and intellectual property rights, mostly these assets are getting monopoly rents. And they also ask for flexible labor market. During last 40 years, there is no, despite significant increase in productivity, labor market is stagnant, and the salaries, and even in Western countries, has been stagnant for the last 40 years. And social solidarity institute, which have been introduced after World War II, there is a gradual degradation, and people are challenging why the social security scheme are available in the Western countries. And central banks have been strengthened. So all this rental capitalism and new liberalism is giving too much power to global companies, to global rights. And I can give you one example. There are three types of asset. One is physical asset, real estate, which have been concentrated a lot, and financial asset, liberalization of financial markets, and intellectual assets. On the basis of intellectual asset, during last 20 years, registration and of intellectual asset, patents and trademarks have been increased significantly. And on the basis of patents, you stop other people to basically compete. So it is in the name of the free market, it is in the name of the competition, but you are stopping other ones. And on the basis of property, these people, these companies, and these people are getting monopoly rents, and as a result, there is too much concentration of wealth on the top. During last in 1980, 1% top people are earning income of around 25%. This income has been increased from 25% to almost 50%. So there is too much concentration. I will give you an example. Oxfam reports on wealth concentration at the top. There are in 2010, there are 388 people who have as much wealth as bottom 50%. It means that 388 people have wealth of around 3 billion people. These people can fly in a plane. And in 7 years' time, in 2017, this number has been reduced from 388 to 42. Now these people can sit even in a bus. And I'm sure if this survey is done again, this number will be reduced from 15 to 20. So 42 people, have as much wealth as, bottom 50%. This is extreme concentration of wealth. It can be compared with 19th centuries, big monarchies, big agricultural land where, people have lots of land and other people are working on these lands. So it's extreme concentration as a result of new liberal policies, globalization, reduction in tariff, giving too much attention and too much power to multinational companies, lesser control of the governments, and the strengthening of the monetary authorities. This concentration has been possible. 1% of the richest people, around 70 million people. Presently, our population is 7 billion. 70 million people have wealth of over 95%. And more than 80% of the all growth in global wealth goes to the same 1%. And on the one side, there is too much wealth, too much production, too much concentration of wealth. And on the other side, there is extreme poverty. As per the World Bank, there are 650 million people who live below the poverty line. Previously, this number was higher, but after China, improvement, this number has been reduced. but it's still 650 million people. And it is almost around 10% of the population. So these people are not, available, not present only in African province. Almost 10%, 10 to 15% people are living below the poverty line in the most advanced industrial country, USA. So on the one side, there is extreme concentration of wealth. On the one side, there is extreme, wealth, production and everything. And on the other side, there is extreme poverty. And Pakistan has, I will give particular attention to Pakistan. Pakistan, as a poor country, has much more poverty. One third of the Pakistanis, almost 70 to 80 million people are living below the poverty line. It means that every third person is, and what is the meaning of below the poverty line? It means that these people don't have food for 3 meals. These people are often hungry, suffer from poor health due to bad health facilities. They cannot give, proper education to their children. They don't have proper access to clean water. Mostly people are homeless. And on top of that, there is no opportunity of upward social mobility. It means that in America and US, maybe next generation can go on upward. But in Pakistan, when you are not giving any education, any health facilities to the children of these people, there is no hope for the next generation. These people are, living a life of inhuman life. And it's very difficult for them to, to compete, to live in this world. As a result, our society, have few characteristics, which I want to present because we have already discussed about the economic point of view, but I also want to discuss the social aspects. As I have discussed, there is a terrifying level of poverty and wealth inequality, too much concentration. In 21st century, we are competing with the monarchies. And secondly, there is extreme chronic insecurity. People feel insecure. Even those people who are not living in the poverty line, even those people are feeling insecure. They think any one mistake, any one event can throw them into the roads. There is a fear of redundancy due to automation and technological changes, and because of that, they cannot work up to their potential. So extreme insecurity for those people, even who are above the poverty line. And thirdly, there is a very high debt. In America, almost private debt is equal to 150% of the GDP. Everyone, before 1980, mostly people have their own houses. But now, everyone is, has sold out. Many people have sold out their houses and they are, living in a mortgage. So their equity is less and their debt is high. In case of any problem, any job loss, they will be in trouble, extreme trouble. And because of these three things, extreme poverty, chronic insecurity, and extreme debt level, these people are living a life of stress, in extreme stress. Underperformance in the workplace, as per the survey, the most important and for most reason is stress. Domestic violence reason is again stress. So this is, producing psychological and health issues in these people, those people who are living poverty line and above them. Same situation is facing stress, debt, and insecurity. And these people are, leading a life of precarity, living as supplicants, asking for favor, not a dignified life, losing civil and other rights. And there are two types of people. One is, who have no hope. One third of the Pakistani people who are living in the poverty line, they don't have any hope for improvement of their life. And the other half is basically feeling very much anger against the society, against the economy. And as a result, they can go to the populist politics. It's bad politics. These people, for example, we can take example of Trump, who said that other people, for example, immigrants, Muslim, they are, taking our rights. So populist politics means others are taking are responsible of this thing. And it's a bad politics because it is creating economical and social problems in our society. So we are in extreme, bad situation. People are working like machine. Working hour has been increased in 1970-80. Working hours in America and Europe, in America particularly, less working hour have increased. Women are working. and they have already sold out. Many people sold out their houses and they are living on mortgage, and still they are feeling difficult life. This is the situation for those countries, even who are living, who are industrial and rich countries. So we have a solution, but we are not able to present before the world. The solution of economic, social, and other problem of society is implementation of zakat in its true sense. In economic sense, for example, in Pakistan, if our 1/3 of the population is below the poverty line, if they will not purchase things, they don't have money to purchase services, use goods, Pakistan cannot progress. But we are discussing about our GDP, 4% GDP. Our opposition is saying 4% is our GDP is less than 4%, but our GDP is 35%. 1/3 of the GDP is deficient because these people are not able to purchase anything. When they cannot purchase, when they are not able to purchase, how producer can produce? And our GDP therefore is deficient. Socially, we are a very unstable society. We can take an example of a family in which one of 3 members don't have money to basically eat. His family is in a difficult condition, and other 2 members of the family are not helping him. We will definitely term them as, we will say them, it's an unstable family. So our society in an unstable society. Thirdly, if we see this problem from moral point of view, it is most important problem. We are discussing on a very minor issues about moon sighting, about other things, but the most important thing in front of us, for which we'll be asked in the hereafter, is 1/3 of the people, our brothers, are living a miserable life, a human life, and we are not able to we are not doing anything for them. According to Zakat system, what is Zakat system? Zakat system, in the Zakat system, the most important thing is that the state will take the responsibility of meeting basic need of all of its citizens. I can take care of 1 or 2, you can take care of 4 or 5, but the state is in a position to take care of all citizens. As said by Hazrat Umar, every person, if a person dies because of hunger, it's responsibility on the caliph. How? Because he is responsible for implementing a system of zakat. Zakat must and always be a state-run program to ensure its true benefits. I will give you some details. This issue resolved by Allah Almighty Himself in the wording. Those who, if we give them power in the land, they establish a salat and pay al zakat and enjoin good deeds. The state role in the collection and distribution of zakat is best supported by the verse that mentions the workers on zakat as one of the categories to whom zakat is distributed. God says, out of their wealth, take a sadaqah, so you might purify and sanctify them. Take is addressed to Prophet as head of Islamic state to the extent that when Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq succeeded the Prophet as head of his state, he continued using state authority and its law enforcement to collect and distribute zakat. When after the Risal of Nabi Kareem Sallam, many tribes refused to pay zakat. They said, okay, we are not going to zakat, or either we will spend this in our own tribe. And Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq said, okay, you cannot differentiate between namaz and zakat. We will fight if you are not giving the same amount of zakat which you are used to be giving in the life of the Prophet. So it is very clear that this is the responsibility of the state. Why is this the responsibility? There are 2-3 reasons. One, there are many people who have no conscience to pay the zakat, particularly those people who have so much wealth. There are people who have billion and billion of rupees. Only the state can take their share. If it is zakat is not a personal charity program, it's basically a organized institution in which a government has to take the amount from every rich person and give it to the poor person. If a state is not doing that, then it will be the right of the poor will not be we will not be able to provide the right to him. Secondly, if a state can take the responsibility of everyone, individual can take the responsibility only on few, but the state is the responsible for every citizen. Thirdly, Islam is not only a religion, it's a state. So if you want to publish and publicize Islamic teaching, zakat is always a state-run program. What is the zakat product? An equitable, social, coherent society and a sustainable an economic growth model. For this objective, we'll get support from all type of people, whether they are religious, because in our opinion, this is the most important religious duty on us. If we want to, to be successful in the hereafter, we have to take care of these people and we work for the implementation of Zakat. Nationalist people who want Pakistan to be a progressive country, Pakistan cannot progress unless and until these 1/3 people who don't have any education facilities and other food facilities, unless and until these people are given these things, Pakistan cannot progress. And in economy, there are two types of economists. One is progressive, who thinks a social institution should be established, and there are other people, other school of thought, free market supporter. In their opinion, instead of government intervention, only free market should be working in its own. And even those people are of the view. For example, I will give you an example of Milton Friedman, who is basically heading the free market supporter. Those people are of the view that basic needs of people should be met by the state. Maybe by giving money to him instead of providing state-run institutes. But for that, we can get support from everywhere. Now I will give you, I will come to the discussion on the Zakat economic impact. First of all, Zakat is the stimulus of GDP growth, investment, and employment. This is the most important, economic indicator. Before 1960, the GDP is now considered the most important economic indicator. Before 1960, this is not, it was not the case, but the employment was discussed so much. Then, a prominent economist, Evans, has given his law. According to him, there's a significant, significant relationship between GDP and employment. In case of 3% increase in GDP, 1% employment will increase. After that, we are focusing for the last 30, 40 years, we are focusing on GDP, although it is initially came into focus as a relationship to employment. So Zakat, why Zakat is very much, conducive for GDP growth, and basically, GDP growth is dependent on aggregate demand. This theory was given by Lord Keynes, which is considered father of modern economics. According to him, if people purchase things, then the producer will produce. So purchases or the aggregate demand should be, strengthened. And there are three parts of the demand. One is the people who are consumers. They are purchasing things. The other one is firms who are basically investing in capital asset. The third one is government. And according to him, in case of any depression, when the consumers are not purchasing, then government has to intervene and government has to spend. But the most important part of the aggregate demand is consumers. Almost 70% of the aggregate demand consists on consumers' purchases. And we know the marginal propensity to consume is far higher in case of poor than the rich person. If I give 100,000 rupees to a rich person, maybe he will save 80,000 rupees, but poor will spend everything. So when he spend things, then producer will produce, they will give employment. So the GDP will increase and the employment will increase. Secondly, when these investment in the capital goods, we know if presently Pakistanis and other people are investing things which are non-productive. For example, in Pakistan, there is a tendency that people are investing in plots. But when people know that every year they have to pay 2.5%, then they will invest on producing things so that they can compensate Zakat payment. Instead of investing in non-productive asset, they will invest in production asset. Thirdly, Zakat is basically when you spend on the aggregate demand and skill building, it will eliminate both cyclical and structural unemployment. In case of depression, when you spend, poor people will purchase. We know that in the corona time, mostly companies are given money to their people. And this money is not important for those people. This is critical for them, but it is also important for their economy. Their economy cannot run without giving this money, because if 20, 25, 30% people will not purchase, it's very difficult to run the economy. So the cyclical unemployment will be eliminated by Zakat. And structural unemployment, which is the difference between the skill demanded by the firms and skill possessed by the people. If you spend on the skill building, then this structural unemployment will be eliminated. So the most important economic indicator, GDP, investment, Zakat has a very, very far-reaching impact on these things. GDP will be at optimal level. When GDP will be at optimal level through aggregate demand, investor will invest, and employment, will be increased at an optimal level. The second most important thing is which we discussed is inflation. Inflation has gained traction in the modern economics in comparison to providing employment. Previously, normally it is considered that inflation and employment are two inversely proportional things. If you want to eliminate the unemployment, inflation is bound to increase, because when you give people 15-20% people who are unemployed, then there is more money, their demand will be high, inflation will be high. But we are discussing too much, because after Second World War, there is too much discussion on the inflation, and inflation rate maybe 100 in some countries very high. But we need to know that employment is much more important than the inflation. Generally, economists are not in favor of government intervention in terms of price control. Why? Because if you control the prices, it will reduce the signals which are given by the producer. In case of higher price, new producer will come in and they step in, they invest, and the price will ultimately settle in. In case of if you control the price, then these signals cannot go to the market forces. So economists generally are not in favor of controlling price control. In case of hoarding, definitely government can intervene, but not in case of in normal circumstances. The Holy Prophet also prohibited price fixation. Some people came to Medina before the Holy Prophet and asked them, the price have shoot up, please, fix the prices for us. Holy Prophet said, Allah, fixes the prices. He sometimes give more, sometimes less. And I don't want to go in front of the Lord because someone has claim against me. So price control is not a panacea. Zakat help poor to meet their essential need, even in an inflationary environment. How? There is one type of zakat, which is ushar, which is applicable on the production of asset. Historically, it is an agriculture asset, but new, Yusuf al-Qaradawi and the modern people who are working on zakat, they think the same thing is applicable on industrial asset. 5% of the amount is dedicated to the poor people. So even in case of inflationary environment, people will get more. So zakat basically is giving money from the top to the bottom. In that case, zakat is meeting the demand of the poor people. Without any, okay, now we can come, time is short. Economic instability. Economic instability is very common in the Western world, in the modern world. Inequality and concentration of wealth breeds social and financial instability. We know that when there is an extreme concentration of wealth, inequality, financial instability bound to come. Booms create bubbles in asset prices, leading ultimately to financial collapse. We have seen in the modern world. Zakat restricts very high level of inequality by transferring money from top to bottom and concentration of wealth. Zakat on wealth limits the bubble in asset prices. If we know that if we made applicable 2.5% price zakat on plots, then plot prices immediately will go down by 25%. And people, these prices will not be, if people know, okay, we don't need to give anything, then these prices will be skyrocketed. And we know that presently the real estate prices are too high. If normal people cannot purchase their own house. Profit greed by using high debt level also resulted in financial instability and collapse. Profit sharing business model compared to interest-based model restrict the high leverage and debt level. We know that high debt level will create instability, and debt repayments, debt can be tackled with the zakat. Recession must decrease aggregate demand. However, spending on welfare and basic need of poor people would increase their purchasing power and demand for essential goods, and hence stop economy to go further. Speculation is prohibited in Islam. Fourth is we have already discussed the poverty elimination and wealth circulation. It's zakat is the best form of tax. As per the we have already mentioned Adam Smith, who is considered the founder of economics. he has given two or three basic characteristics of a good taxation: justice and equity. Okay, you have to take taxes on the basis of the capacity of the people, and zakat is taken from the rich and given to the poor people. Secondly, certainty and continuity. Every year we discuss, when the month of April comes, but new budget, we will discuss budget, new taxes will be imposed, new rates will be applicable. Every year there is a change. This is, very bad for the economy. And zakat and ushur has been applicable for the last 1400 years. So this is the most certain and most continuous, tax. So from characteristics which have been given by the modern economist Adam Smith, this zakat is the best form of the taxation. And first ever system of social security and welfare. The Western world think after World War II, there is an Atlantic Treaty between UK and America, and at that time social security institutes were introduced. But this institute in Islam was introduced almost 1400 years back, and it had been applicable for many hundred years. But now we are not presenting it as a panacea to our problems. Now I will give you briefly discuss. I have spent most of the time, but I will give you briefly discuss the solution with the figures for Pakistani environment. If we made applicable 2.5% tax on wealth, it has a potential of over 2,500 billion rupees. It is almost 10 times higher than the individual taxation. Because in Pakistan, mostly tax is paid by the big company. It's 85 to 90%. And this amount is more than 10 times of the Asas program. So with this amount, we can give every poor family around over 200,000 rupees. And this huge amount will revolutionize their lives and eliminate the poverty in few years. So this is so huge impact. It's a policy choice. If there are 33% people who are not able to meet their needs, it's a policy choice for us. Otherwise, if we have properly applicable zakat may be poverty may be eliminated. We have already heard the Waqf of Hazrat Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Nabi Kareem Sallam sent him to one place, and after 3 years there was no person who is there to take the zakat. Secondly, we want ushur. Ushur is a type of zakat which is applicable on producing asset. There are three types of assets. One is personal asset on which there is no zakat. There is other assets which are there for growth. Zakat, another meaning of zakat is growth. And the third type of asset which are producing, for example, agriculture assets, industrial assets, 5% ushur is applicable. It is far simpler system than our current GST. In Pakistan, we have a GST with 17%, but the effective collection of the government is just 4.25%. So if we made applicable, and the compliance cost is huge in Pakistan for GST, input output adjustment, other complexities, other problems. If we replace sales tax with 5% ushur, we in Pakistan total GDP is around 47 trillion rupees. So we can get 2.3 trillion rupees from this ushur. And most importantly, this amount will go to the poor for meeting the poor needs. Presently, 60% of the Pakistan tax is going on interest. So instead of spending on a bad thing, we are collecting in a very difficult manner. But now we are presently spending 60% of the amount on interest. So this amount will go to the poor, meeting the needs of the poor people. Thirdly, Islam wants to eliminate the interest rate. Presently, three big markets, America, Europe, and Japan, have almost using a policy of zero interest rate. Before Corona, American interest rate is 1.5%. Now it's been reduced to 0.25. In Scandinavia, it is -1%. So it's not a strange thing. And if we made applicable zero interest rate with zakat, then it will not concentrate in wealth. In Western countries, it will concentrate wealth because mostly big companies are taking money with 1 or 2% interest rate, and they are making too much profit. It is concentrating wealth. But when you made applicable zakat with the elimination of interest zero rate, Pakistani government can save more than presently 60% of the money is going to interest, more than 2,000 billion rupees. So any loss from the sale tax can be met with the reduction or elimination of interest rate. And it is not a difficult. It is in the Quran ke zakat will basically increase growth, barakat, and sadaqah is eliminate the barakat. It is mentioned in 1400 years back, but now in the present situation, it is proved, because all big countries have reduced their interest rate to grow their economy, and they are paying to their poor people so that the economy can run. So this is the program, and I think I have completed my time. If you have any question, you may ask. I have some recommendation to implement it, but time is over. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you very much, sir. It was very interesting presentation, especially for the case of Pakistan, where you provided some facts and figures how poverty can be tackled and how the Islamic models are applicable. So we are very grateful for your knowledgeable presence. I would like to invite Dr. Talat Hussain to moderate any questioning answering session and then conclude this session for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noman. And once again, I thank to our respected guest speaker, Mr. Kanit Khalilullah Saab, and he gave a very brief and presentation about the zakat and especially the health issues that what we have been, especially in the death pandemic in Pakistan. Okay, dear participants, if you'll have any question from our respected guest speaker, so you may ask now. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Ji, and our respected Professor Dr. Mujahid Kamran sir, please.
Khalilullah Sahab, I just want to know that the zakat, when you take zakat at 2.5%, what will be the status of these income taxes and other things that we pay? Will they have to go away?
In my opinion, although it can be discussed, because in the modern state we are taking the responsibility of many more things. For example, if there is a posh place, government has to construct the roads and other thing in that place, and it is but in my opinion, in Pakistan, individual taxation, I will give you two examples. Individual taxation number is around 250 to 60 billion rupees. One half is given by the salaried class and the other half is given by the business class. And the 80%, it's just 15-20% of the total tax. 80% is given by the corporation on which zakat is not applicable. And these corporations are multinational companies, so you have to take care with them with the international laws, and it is not prohibited. I'm saying if we eliminate individual taxation and made applicable zakat in place of that, we can get 10 times more money, because in Pakistan GDP is total GDP is around 47 trillion and wealth to GDP ratio is generally 4 to 5. So if we take a cautious view, around 200 trillion Pakistan wealth, and we know in the capitalist society 90% of the wealth is in the hands of the 10% people. So easily we can obtain 2,500 billion rupees, which is sufficient to give every poor family. There are 1 crore or 10 million poor families in Pakistan, and every family can get more than 200,000 rupees. It is, if we spend this money, if we just give this money to them, economy will run. Why? Because these 35% people are not, spending, and therefore our GDP is deficient. So I'm of the view, one thing is that instead of individual taxation, the zakat should be applicable. And secondly, our very complicated type of sales tax, which is, input, output, which we have copied when I was in Ferguson, I think 20 years back. At the time, the government copied this sales tax system from the New Zealand. And still it is not, we are not able to, there is so much loopholes, input, output, compliance cost is very high. And Islam has given a very straight system. 5% ushar should be applicable on all production. It is all ulama have agreed on agriculture. But people who are Jadid ulmas, Yusuf al-Qaradawi, I will give the example, who is the most prominent alim in the present world. He's of the opinion, and other people are favoring them. On industrial production, the same thing is applicable, and the service production, same thing is applicable. So if we give 5% to them, the most important thing there, presently this amount is going to interest. Pakistani government is paying almost 60% of the taxes in interest amount. And our debt is not as high as advanced countries. Our debt is around 85% of the GDP, And European countries average that is 125%. But since their interest rate is zero, they are paying just 2-3% of their taxes. We are paying 60% of the taxes, and we are basically encouraging who rent seeker who are sitting and investing in the banks and other places, and banks, big banks, are give this amount to the government, and government pay interest. So instead of, if we reduce the interest rate gradually or significantly to zero level, it is not a bad thing. We are discussing too much on Islamic banking. Although in my opinion, instead of focusing on Islamic banking, we should ask a zero interest rate. It is not. It is applicable across the world. America, Europe, Japan, and even our neighboring countries. India has 2-3% interest rate. Why can't we? And if it is mentioned in the Quran, it is hurting growth, then it is hurting growth. So on the one side, we made applicable zero interest rate. On the other side, all assets, excluding personal asset, should be zakatable. So in my opinion, corporation should run as they are, but there are two things should be replaced. One is individual. In Malaysia, I have heard in Malaysia, taxation, if for example, there is 50 rupees zakat and 100 rupees tax, then you will have to pay just 50 rupees. So this is the possibility that zakat payment can be adjusted on income, or it is possible that all across individual taxation should be eliminated. But in Pakistan, individuals are paying taxes just 15%. In America, almost 60%. So we can replace altogether individual taxation, or we can give a state reduction of zakat payment with the taxation. So there are two options. But I'm more concerned about it should be applicable at the government level. Otherwise, those people who are very wealthy, we can give the example of wealthy people who have 500 billion, 600 billion worth. No, it's very difficult for them to pay accurately as per zakat. They will take some fatwa, some other things, and try to. And in this case, the right of the poor and the poverty will prevail. So in my opinion, instead of individual taxation, we can easily replace zakat, and then we can use, every one of us submits wealth tax. If we ask them to, in wealth tax, market prices will be given. Then the present system can be used for the collection of zakat. And Asas program, the government, in my opinion, 90% of the money is giving rightly. So we can use for the distribution. We can use blockchain, other things. So various, things are available. For collection, we have, the most important asset is cash, which is, everyone has the CNIC. So FBR has a record for that. Plots. Second, real estate, which is almost 60% of the total wealth. It's very difficult for a person to conceal the plot. So if zakat is applicable, if there is a will, I think it's very easy to implement it.
Thank you, sir. Jazakallah khair. Now I will request our Honorable Professor Dr. Mujahid Kamran Sahab for a vote of thanks. So please, sir.
I'm sorry I was asked to join late because this is a very interesting topic, and that is why I asked the question the moment I had the opportunity. We are very grateful on behalf of UMT. I would like to thank Dr. Ishaq Bhatti, Dr. Akram Saab, Dr. Naseem Shirazi Saab, Dr. Khalilullah Saab for their thoughtful presentations. And the world is in a very difficult situation because of usury that has led to concentration of wealth in a very small number of hands who have become so powerful that they can control the Congress of the US, they can control the government of the US and of other countries. And it is very difficult to fight them. So the concept of zakat and the concept of getting rid of usury is the key to saving the world, but it is in principle there, but who is going to implement it? Because there will be powerful forces who will oppose that. But in any case, this system is the one which, if adopted, can save the world from the kind of difficulties mankind finds itself in. So thank you very much. I'm very grateful for having been given the opportunity to listen to the remarks of Khalilullah Sahib, and I would have loved to hear what his preceding speakers had said, but maybe some other time then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Jazakallah khair. Now I'll be request our DG Abid Shirwani sir to give the closing ceremony remarks. Our respected sir, Abid Shirwani sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Talla Saab. Assalamu alaikum to all.
Walaikum assalam.
To my very dear friend from Berlin, from Australia, Dr. Ishaq Bhatti Saab. Now he's, I think, resided in Australia a few months back. He was in Pakistan. I met him. I'm much impressed with his excellent knowledge in business, in finance, and particular to the banking of the both conventional banking and Islamic banking as well. And we have another guest speaker, Dr. Mohammed Akram Saab, Dr. Naim Shah Shirazi Sahib, Naseem Shah Shirazi Sahib, or Ghanid Khalilullah Sahib, and my teacher, Dr. Murad Kamran Sahib, and my other lovely participants of this webinar. First of all, I must congratulate my team of business school under the leadership of Dr. Talat and their colleagues as well, who organized this seminar in a wonderful way. And he basically touched a very important and integral part of Islamic Rukun, Zakat. And Zakat's impact on our society, in not only in Pakistan and the Muslim world and the other part of the world as well. And according to the Islam, it is mandatory for all the eligible person, they should distribute 0.5% of their wealth to the society. And according to the Quran, Zakat is eligible for the use of following 8 categories. Number 1 is the poor, the needy, Zakat collectors, those who have converted to Islam and are in need, those in slavery, those in debt, in the way of Allah, and the travelers. So these 8 are very prominent categories who are eligible to use the Zakat. And basically, Zakat is providing an equilibrium in the society to overcome the disparities of the societies in between rich and poor. And basically, this is sacrifice. It teaches the sacrifice to the Muslims and towards those who don't have the resources. But by using this Zakat, we can provide a very good lesson to those who don't know about the Islam, how Islam is caring for others, for those people who don't have the resources, who don't have the voices, who don't have some good reach. So in our early stages of Islam, when it was enforced, we heard and we learned through different books that in that era, there is a lot of wealth in the society, and there was no person who is eligible for the utilization of this wealth. So this is a golden era of Islam and still exists. Although in this era, it is very difficult. I just want to share one thing that in 1992, China had 87% of the population at that time was below the poverty line. And in 1982, the Pakistani population is just only 28% who lived below the poverty line. But in 2021, a huge difference there. Now in China, only 7% of the population is living below the poverty of line. And in Pakistan, according to the World Bank figures, around 39.3% of the population of Pakistan is living below the poverty of line. So despite all these efforts, with all these we have a lot of departments, Zakat department we have, SAS program we have, poverty alleviation fund we have, and a huge Khankai system, Madaris system, a Mazarat system we have. Despite of all these resources, our population is going up to below the poverty line. And it is a great matter of concern. And we also align with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goal number 1 is leads to no poverty. The Sustainable Development Goal number 2 is leads to zero hunger. And Sustainable Development Goal 10 is leads to reduce inequalities in the society. But when we look into the society, look into our country, or look into the Muslim countries as well. So this gap is widening year by year, day by day as well. So there are a lot of matter of concern, a lot of question arises around us with our technocrats, with our society members. So we should focus on these things. And I'm pretty glad to listen my worthy speakers. They shed their lights on these very particular questions about, according to the Shari'ah, according to the Zakat, according to our teaching of Islam and Quranic guidance, how we can overcome all these things. And I do hope that we will chalk out a good plan according to their speakers' views to the society, how we can address all these things to bring maximum relief to the society, to overcome these anomalies, these reduction in poverty, reduction in hunger, reduction in inequalities, and we spread over the zakat and utilization of these all resources in a pragmatic way, so that we could bring a good society according to the teaching of Islam. And I'm also again very thankful to Dr. Talat and his team to organize such a beautiful webinar on this issue, and on these my words that I leave Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Ahsan al-Jaza. We are very much thankful to our respected Abid Saab that he gave us the closing remarks. And once again, I am very thankful to all our international, national guests that they gave us their precious time, and we really much got the fruitful discussions that what we had in today's seminars. And at the end, I must appreciate the organization team, Dr. Numan Arshad, Mr. Farhan Ali, our supporting teams, COD Banking and Finance, Mr. Adil Salam Sheikh Saab, COD Economics, Professor Hafizur Rahman Saab, Dean School Dr. Hassan Murad, Dr. Naveed Yazdani Saab, and all our technical team, OCM, OTIs, and all our UM teams. And especially, I'm very much thankful to our all the participants who they participated at the national and international level, faculty members from UMTs, and we hope that all the participants they will have good, fruitful discussion from today. So with that, we are going to close our ceremony and this seminars. Billahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi